So we've been talking about factoring quadratic trinomials when our first coefficient, our A coefficient, was 1. But now we want to talk about factoring quadratic trinomials when our A coefficient is something other than 1. So let's say that we had 2y squared plus 13y plus 15. And we need to factor this. The first thing that I would do is identify my coefficients. So A is 2, B is 13, and C is 15. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off to the side, and I'm going to take A and I'm going to multiply it by C. So in this case, I am looking at 2 times 15, which is a 30. And now I'm going to go back to what I did when A was 1. I'm going to write down all the factors of this number. It's just that now this number is A times C. So I could do 1 times 30. I could also do -1 times -30, but I think I'm going to ignore negatives on this one because the original quadratic has no negative values in it. So I don't think any factors with negatives are going to help me. So I'm going to go down to 2 times 15, and again, I could write -2 times -15. I just don't think that negatives are going to help me with this quadratic. 3 times 10, let's see, 4, no. 5 times 6, I think that's it. And so what I'm looking for is the same thing that I was looking for before. I'm looking to see which one of the factors add to give me the B coefficient, which in this case is 13. So these first pair of factors are 31. I'm going to ignore these negatives. Then I get 17, then I get 13, and then I get 11. So I think it's going to be this one right here. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to rewrite my original quadratic. So I'm going to start out with the 2y squared, but I'm not going to write 13y. I'm going to use the factors, the 3 and the 10 that I came up with. So I'm going to write plus 3y plus 10y. So all I did was just rewrite that 13y is a 3y and a 10y. I didn't change it, I just broke them apart. And then I still have the plus 15 on the end. So the strategy I'm going to use now is to group the first 2 terms, group the last 2 terms, and I'm going to factor. The first 2 terms do not have a coefficient factor in common, but they do have a y in common. And when I take out a y, this becomes 2y plus 3. The second 2 have a coefficient factor in common of 5. And when I take that out, I get a 2y plus 3. I'm going to stop for a second and look at my parentheses. I need for my parentheses to be the same. If they're not the same, I probably did something wrong. Maybe I picked the wrong factors, or maybe I didn't take out the greatest common factor, and I need to go back and check myself. It's also possible that the polynomial is prime, but I think I'm going to go back and check my work before I assume that it's prime. Okay, so both my parentheses are the same. That means that one of my factors is going to be what's in those parentheses. And the other factor is going to be what's left over, which is the y plus 5. I can go back and check myself by distributing or multiplying. So 2y squared plus 10y plus 3y plus 15. And that does give me the original polynomial, so I'm feeling pretty good about this being the factored form. All right, let's do another one. So let's say I had something a little bit more complicated. Let's say that I had something that was 6a squared plus 7a minus 24. A is 6, B is 7, C is negative 24. I'm going to do A times C, which in this case is 6 times negative 24. And that's going to be negative 144, which is not the best number in the whole world to have to deal with. But I'm just going to go ahead with it. So when I deal with this negative 144, I think my goal is to get the B of 7. So I'm going to be a little bit strategic about this. I'm not sure I care about 1 times negative 144 or negative 1 times 144 because there's no way that that's going to give me something as small as 7. So I think that I'm going to try and up my factors here. So let me see if like a 4 will go into 144. And 4 will go into 144 36 times. So 4 times negative 36 or negative 4 times 36. Neither of those are going to give me a 7. Okay, so what do I have? 6 times 24. So 6 times negative 24, negative 6 times 24. Neither of those are going to give me a 7. So I'm just going to keep looking and trying. And I see this 9. 9 times 16. 9 times negative 16. Negative 9 times 16. I think that this one right here is going to give me that 7. So I think that's the one that I want. So notice how I didn't go through every factor. I just kind of picked and choose to see which one would give me that 7 because 144 is a really large number to factor. All right, so now I'm going to go up here and I'm going to rewrite 6a squared. And instead of writing 7a in the middle, I'm going to write minus 9a plus 16a. I'm still going to have the minus 24 at the end. So all I did was just rewrite the 7a. It's not gone. I just split it up. Group the first two. They have a 3 and an a in common. So that was me with a 2a minus 3. Bring down this plus sign. The second group has an 8 in common. That leaves me with a 2a minus 3. Are my parentheses the same? Yes, they are. So one factor is 2a minus 3, and the other factor is what's left over, 3a plus 8. I can go back and check myself, so I can distribute this out. 2a times 3a is 6a squared. 2a times 8 is a 16a. Negative 3 times 9 is a, negative 9a. And then I have a negative 24 at the end. So this is 6a squared plus 7a minus 24. So I'm feeling good about this being how to factor my original quadratic trinomial. All right, let's do one more. Let's do 3x squared minus 11x minus 20. So pause me right down and do the first part. Do the a times c, write down the factors, and see if you can figure out which factor you're looking at. Pause me. Okay, so I started with 1 times 60, and those values were just a little bit too high. So I went to 2, went to 3, and went to 4. And I think I figured out that it's going to be 4 times negative 15, because 4 times negative 15, if I add them together, I'll get a b that's negative 11. So I'm going to go rewrite my polynomial. 3x squared plus 4x minus 15x minus 20. So I didn't change it, I just rewrote this negative 11x. And I'm going to factor the first two and factor the second two. So pause me again and try and do that. Okay, so I got down to where the first two have an x in common, and when I took it out, I got a 3x plus 4. I brought down this minus sign, and I took a 5 out of the last two. And I wrote it as a 3x minus 4. But I know that something is wrong because my parentheses are not the same. One of them has a plus sign and one of them has a minus sign. I also know that if I distribute this 5 right here, that I should get the same thing that I started with on this line. And if I distribute this negative 5 to that negative 4, that's going to give me a positive 20. So what I think is that this should actually be a plus sign right here. And that makes sense because I took out a negative 5. So when I take out a negative 5, this sign changes and this sign changes. All right, so now I'm feeling pretty good that one of the factors is 3x plus 4 and that the other one is x minus 5. I can go back and check myself though. 3x squared minus 15x plus 4x minus 20. 3x squared minus 11x minus 20. Okay, so that gives me the original one, so this must be the factored form.